Okay, so next step for us is to create a CloudFront distribution for our subdomain and the root domain. Now, before we go and do that, let's first talk about what is Amazon CloudFront. So, Amazon CloudFront is a web service that speed up distribution of your static and dynamic web content. It could be your HTML files or your JavaScript files, CSS files, your images, your videos, all these things. So, transferring of these data to your users is what its purpose. And the most important thing is it transfer and deliver these things to your user with lowest latency and very high speed. And what how exactly it happens? So it deliver your content through worldwide network of data centers, which is called edge locations or point of presence. So when a user requests content that you are serving with CloudFront, the request is routed to the nearest edge locations, and then from there, the object or the data that user is requesting is delivered to the user with lowest latency. And to reduce the latency, it caches the object, and if the data is present in the cache in the edge locations, that data is then delivered to the users, and that's how it speed up the content delivery. Okay, so let's review this, like how CloudFront distribution delivers content to your user. So a user accesses your website or application and sends a request for an object, and it could be image file or HTML file. So in our case, we are serving a website, and the object can be an image file or our index.html file. So user will come and then browse our website. It is basically requesting for index.html page, right, from CloudFront. So now as soon as user type the domain name, the DNS routes the request to the CloudFront edge location or point of presence that can best serve the request. So that is determined by the DNS. And typically the CloudFront POPs are determined in terms of latency, like which particular POP or edge locations can deliver the content with the lowest latency. Now CloudFront checks if cache for the requested object is present or not. So if object is in the cache, CloudFront return it to the user, and if object is not in the cache, CloudFront forward the request to the origin server for the corresponding object. So for example, our origin server in our case is Amazon S3 bucket. But if you are running application using the HTTP server, it can also be your origin server. You could be running your application on Amazon EC2. So in that case, your origin is EC2. So that's how basically it happens. Then origin server sends the object back to the edge locations. And as soon as CloudFront receives that object back from the origin server, it just delivered that to the user. So that's it in short. I just wanted to provide a brief overview of what exactly is Amazon CloudFront and why we are using it. And now let's go to AWS Management Console, and then we will start creating a CloudFront distribution for our subdomain name. And then the second step is to create another distribution for our root domain name. Now let's go to Amazon Management Console and click on Create CloudFront Distribution. So the first thing that it is asking is the origin, like what is your origin of the data, from where the CloudFront should pick the data. So you can choose from here. It will provide you like a lot of list and everything. So right now in my AWS account, it knows that I have S3 buckets created. So S3 buckets can be your origin. I don't have any load balancer, but if you have a load balancer created in your account, it might show the list of load balancers for you. API gateway is another option for your origin. And then there are some others like media store container and media package containers and all that. So these all can be different origins for your CloudFront distribution. So we want to create a CloudFront distribution for subdomain, and this is the Amazon S3 bucket name for that. So I will choose it here. So this is the S3 bucket for my subdomain name, www.cloudwithharry.com. So I will select that. Origin path, this is an optional field. We don't have to provide that. The name of the origin is already selected. We want the public access or origin access control setting or legacy access identities. So I mentioned initially that we will be using origin access control, and this is because we want only CloudFront to access our origin or S3 bucket. We don't want to provide public access to the objects present in our S3 bucket. We want our users to access objects only via CloudFront. Okay, so this is something which we will use here, origin access control setting, which is a recommended way. Also, as per the AWS best practices, you should always keep your origin secure from the user access, and that's the option we will go with. So we don't have anything created as of now. So we will click on create a new OAC, origin access control. Here you can provide the name of the S3 bucket, enter any description if you want to, and origin type is S3, and just click create. So your origin access control OAC is getting created. and you can see that it's already created and selected over here. You must update S3 bucket policy. So CloudFront will provide you with the policy statement after creating the distribution. So once we will create the distribution, CloudFront will generate S3 bucket policy for us, and we will review that once we will create the distribution. And then that policy, we need to go to S3, and in the permissions, we need to edit the policy in S3 bucket and update that policy so that S3 can only be accessed by CloudFront, and no other person, no other people can access apart from CloudFront. Okay, so add custom headers. We don't want to add that, so you can skip that. Enable Origin Shield. Origin Shield is additional caching layer that can help reduce the load on your origin and help protect its availability. And this is something which you want to enable. You can enable, but as of now, I'm just keeping it no. In additional settings, connection attempts and connection timeouts, and these are some advanced settings. For this exercise, like, we will not go into these settings. Default cache behavior, so compress object automatically, keep it yes, keep this option selected. And then allowed HTTP methods is only get and head. Restrict viewer access, so no for that. And then keep all the things here as default, which is already selected for you. Smooth streaming and all that, just keep default. These are the cloud functions. This is something which is little advanced topic, so we will not go into this right now, but I will definitely create a video on what are these CloudFront functions and how we can use them at viewer request and viewer response and origin request, origin response. So these are the places where you can add the functions, and they can perform some processing of your data and all that thing. So as of now, we don't want to do that, so we'll not go into this in detail. Web application firewall, so this is to enable security protection, like for any attacks or those kind of things. So you can enable that, and rest all the things you can keep default. Use all edge locations for best performance, so you can keep that. Alternate C domain name or CNAME optional. Add custom domain name that you use in URL all the files served by the distribution. So here we can add our custom domain name, www.cloudwithharry.com. This is our alternate, like the CNAME or the domain name for this particular cloud distribution. And here we can select the SSL certificate that we have just issued from the AWS certificate manager, and default root object. So this is the default root object that will open up when the CloudFront distribution URL will be accessed by the user. So this will be our index.html, because this is our root object that we want our users to see, right, whenever they browse the website. So we want CloudFront to show this as a default root object. And then standard logging is off, IPv4 is also off. And let's review this again one more time. So we have added the origin as our subdomain name S3 bucket. This is origin path is optional, so we don't want to add anything here. And then we are using origin access control to protect our origin from users access. We just want to provide a CloudFront to access S3 and the objects in the S3 bucket. And then we didn't make any change here. Then default cache behavior is like default. And then we change the viewer policy to redirect HTTP to HTTPS so that all the users come with HTTPS connection. For the caching, we have like a cache policy and origin request policy. This is the recommended, so using that. And then we have enabled the web application firewall, and then we use all edge locations for the best performance, which is the default. We added the alternate domain name for this particular distribution. It will be served by the distribution. So we added the SSL certificate, which we got from the ACM, and rest all the things are default. So after reviewing, if you feel like everything is good, looks good to you, then you can click on create distribution. Now, as soon as we click on create distribution, it's saying that successfully created new distribution. Now it is showing the S3 bucket policy needs to be updated, right? And so you can copy the policy from here, and now click here to go to the S3 bucket. So we are here in the bucket, and then we can go to permissions, and here inside permission we have bucket policy. Click add it here, and just paste the policy which we have copied from the CloudFront distribution. And here you can see that the permission, which is allow, principal is CloudFront distribution, and the action is S3 get object, and this is the resource, all the object inside that bucket, and condition is like if the source ARN is equals to this, then only provide get object access, like basically for all the objects inside this particular bucket. So this is the policy which we got from the CloudFront distribution. Just click save changes. Now all the object in this bucket can only be accessed by the CloudFront distribution, and no users can directly access the object from this bucket. Now let's go back to CloudFront distribution, and we can see that currently it is in deploying stage, and once it will be it will take some time for CloudFront distribution to be ready. So we can keep monitoring this, and after that we can test this distribution to see whether we can access our website or not. So let's review this again after this deploying is complete, and then we can verify the CloudFront distribution URL to make sure that we are able to access our website. Okay, so now I can see that the CloudFront distribution is ready and it is enabled. Let's go to review our CloudFront distribution. Click here. You can see that the distribution domain name. Now let's go and open and browse this URL in the browser, and I'm expecting that the default root object should open up. So let's go and see there. All right, so we can see that we can access our website, and this is the index.html page, the default root object that we configured when we created the CloudFront distribution. And it's showing that our distribution created successfully, and we can access our website with this particular URL. Now the next step is to create the same distribution for our root domain name. This will be a little different because on the root domain name, we have already enabled the website hosting. So let's go and review that and create the distribution for our root domain name. Click on create distribution. Here we can select Cloud with Harry S3 bucket. And then as soon as you will select that, it will show that this bucket has static website enabled. If you plan to use this distribution as a website, we recommend using the S3 website endpoint rather than the bucket endpoint. So this is the bucket endpoint that is showing up here right now. But as per the recommendation, it is telling us that because the website hosting is enabled on this bucket, we can use the website endpoint. So let's use the website endpoint. So as soon as we click that, it will use the website endpoint. Now for S3 buckets, this is one important thing. When you host a website on S3 bucket, it only support HTTP protocol. So you cannot enable HTTPS protocol if you are using S3 for your website hosting. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. So the HTTP port will be 80, origin path optional. Rest all the things should be similar to what we did with the distribution for the subdomain name. Viewer protocol policy, we want viewers to be redirected from HTTP to HTTPS. Rest everything can be default. We can have WAF enabled here also for this distribution, and you can keep use all edge locations. And for the CNAME, you can type cloudwithharry.com, and we can select the same SSL certificate because we issued the certificate for all the subdomains for this particular root domain, so it's still applicable here. And there is no default root object here in this bucket. You don't need to provide anything for this bucket because there's no object in this bucket. And okay, so it's currently in deploying phase. We can click it and review the information. We can see that the domain name for this distribution is also created.